Hogs are in the Sweet 16. They're in action today. That's where our guest co-host, celebrity historian Raffi Andonian comes in. He's going to give us a bit of history on the NCAA tournament. That's all coming your way today right here on Good Day NWA. Welcome to our show, highlighting all the great things happening right here in Northwest Arkansas. We've got a bit of art, community events, and folks like you making Northwest Arkansas a great place to live. As I've mentioned, Raffi joining me while Jackie is out on vacation. Thanks for being here, Raffi.
Thanks for having me on.
We always love to have you. We're making this a regular thing. You're coming back pretty often to give us history lessons. But for folks who haven't seen you before, remind us who you are, what you do.
I'm a celebrity historian. You see me all over the place on television, coming here regularly. I go all over. I have my own TV show as well. And, you know, I've written some books.
Yeah.
I teach a class that is related to connecting past and present. I have an employer program I call Clio Club, all kinds of stuff, all related to history, trying to help us see the relevance of history in our lives today, but also making it fun and exciting and engaging, because I think it can be a fun way to see the world around us.
Yes, you do that. And one thing I love about what you do is that we'll give you any kind of topic, and you're like, yep, I know some history on that. Like today we were like, you know, the Hogs are in the Sweet 16. You're like, oh, I got some history on March Madness. So anything we throw your way, you always knock it out of the park.
Everything has a history, right? Yeah. And so I spend time studying this stuff, and I also, you know, I love basketball in that case, and so I end up looking into the history, and it just kind of goes from there. And Arkansas itself is a wonderful state in terms of history, such a incredible place in the crossroads that it sits, you know, in the regions kind of between the South and Midwest, the old Southwest.
Yes.
Arkansas used to be in the old Southwest Conference.
Of course,
right?
I was here for that, yeah. Yes, I was around.
So, I mean, it's kind of funny how we went from Southwest Conference to Southeastern Conference, right? But it kind of regional.
But we didn't even change.
That's right.
Still here, the same spot. Yeah. Did you play basketball?
I did in high school, actually. Not in college, but I played in high school. I played basketball and football.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and even before that, in middle school and grade school, I played summer leagues and things like that. So I really enjoyed the game. Of course, on playgrounds. I grew up in Los Angeles originally. There's lots of playgrounds and basketball courts there. So I did that as well. So that's how I got into it. And,
I love it.
You know, history is another passion, and so it intersects here today.
I love it. We're gonna bring it all together a little bit later on the show, so stick around for that fun segment we've got with Raffi. The NCAA tournament has reached its Sweet 16 weekend. In this championship, top seeds Purdue and, of course, defending champion Kansas have all bit the dust. They've gone down. They did not make it to this weekend. This weekend, you're going to see games in New York City, Las Vegas, Kansas City, and Louisville. The Final Four is in Houston. Semifinals are, of course, on April 1st with the championship game on April 3rd. The Hogs are in action today at around 6:15. And Raffi, there's only 16 teams left. So from heartbreak to elation, emotions have run wild in the March Madness tournament. And we, this week, even have had Zach Arns from Ruskin and Zach on to break down the bracket for us. Plus, our weather team, Josh Rugger, talked about a link between active weather and upsets in the tournament. And now today, right now, Raffi's going to give us a bit of a history lesson on March Madness. Yeah, let's do it.
Here's one with Arkansas.
Yeah.
They're number 8 seed, right?
Right, sure.
They have a shot. An 8 seed in the past has won the NCAA tournament, the entire thing. So it has happened. It's unlikely, but it has happened. So we have a chance.
I love that. Can you give us some history on the tournament itself? Where do we start with that?
Of course. I mean, so the NCAA tournament, as we know it, starts in 1939. So we're coming close. We're going to approach the century mark here. Now, it used to start smaller. It used to have just 8 teams, and it went to 16, and it kept growing to the 64 teams plus the first 4 that you have today. And it just evolved over time. Now, what's really fascinating about the NCAA tournament is that it didn't actually start as March Madness. That's a term that came later.
Okay.
So March Madness used to apply to high school basketball. Can you believe that? Up in Illinois.
Okay.
And there was a basketball association up there in the 1900s and 1930s, so right about until the time the NCAA tournament begins. Do you know how many teams they had in there? People think 64 teams is a lot today.
Right, yes.
They had 900 teams in that tournament.
900
high school teams. Yep, they played round after round. And that became known as March Madness. In fact, one of the officials from that wrote an essay in an Illinois high school basketball publication called March Madness. It was a very poetic essay. And that's when the term March Madness started. It didn't apply to college basketball until the 1980s. So it applied later to college basketball, but now obviously a universal term for all the craziness we see like you're just describing.
Yeah. So you were also talking to me in the break about some rule changes in basketball that you thought we might find interesting.
So let me show you an example. So one of the classic things you think of when you think of basketball, right, is dribbling.
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
Well, guess what? That wasn't part of the game when it started.
Really?
You were not allowed to dribble. You only could pass the ball until they changed the rules. So dribbling is passing to yourself. That's how they justified it. I'm passing to myself when I'm doing the dribble.
So when the game started out, you would run and someone would throw you the ball, you'd catch the ball, and then you'd have to throw it on or take a shot.
Exactly, more like Frisbee. Yeah, more like Frisbee. You know, you can't dribble the Frisbee, so you're passing, you're shooting.
Sure.
Exactly. And actually, I was in England a couple of years ago, and they play a version of that. Exactly. They play a version of that. That's right. And basketball originally, of course, was it peach baskets, no backboard. You also, after you scored, you'd have to do a jump ball every time. Can you imagine that? That changes the game quite a bit. You didn't used to have a coach that would be on the sideline until quite some time. So a lot of rule changes have changed the game. It's really fascinating when you think about it. Of course, the three-point line, people think of the three-point shot today. That's actually pretty recent in the history of basketball, only in the last 40 years, depending exactly where you're looking. So it's really fascinating.
It is fascinating.
What I mean?
I've got a question for you before we move on. Let's talk about the history of the game of basketball itself. Can you give us some history on that? Where did it start? Where the origins?
Yeah, so it starts in the 1880s, and it starts up in Springfield, Massachusetts, which is where today the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame is, and Naismith himself started. You want to know what his background was? His undergrad degree was in theology. Can you believe that?
Interesting.
So he came and was a graduate student in physical education. And the professors there said, we want a sport that we can play indoors, that's active, simple enough people can follow, but complex enough that it's interesting. He came up with basketball, and of course, the whole world plays it today. Absolutely,
yeah. Olympic sport, lots of basketball happening, especially right now. Raffi, thanks for filling us in. A lot of history, a lot to go and think about before the Hogs go win that game this afternoon.
And Arkansas has a chance, remember.
They do, just like you said. Thanks to all of our guests for being on the show today. Today's sponsors include Walton Arts Center and Turpentine Creek Wildlife Refuge. Make sure you find, like, and follow us. We're out there on social media. We're posting all of our interviews, our hot topics, and more. All you need to do is search Good Day NWA. Okay, Raffi, we got a few minutes left. We're going to talk about basketball again, I think. Is that what we're doing? Hit me. Three-point stance. Let's go. Yeah, tell me about it. What else can you fill us in on with the tournament?
Well, how about this year? We had one of the greatest upsets with 16-1, right? Farley Dickinson over Purdue.
Yeah.
So that's the second time that happened. The first time was just a few years ago, 2018.
Just Virginia went down, right?
Virginia went down to UMBC, and University of Maryland, Baltimore County. And that was the first 16 seed over a 1. You want to know what the record was for 1 seed over 16s up to that point? 135-0.
Wow.
So that counts technically as the greatest upset ever, because also by 20 points. It was a huge, so it was a big one. So history made and then made again.
Yeah. Speaking of points, you were telling me that Arkansas has been in one of the highest scoring tournaments.
They have been. So in tournament history, they are the 7th highest scoring game.
Okay.
And they beat Loyola Marymount.
Okay, yeah.
It was 120-101.
Wow.
Yeah.
By today's standards, I mean, I feel like we hardly get out of the 80s.
I know. That's incredible, right? And of course, one of the record setters, or one of the high ones. I mean, it's almost like an NBA game today.
Yeah.
But NBA games are longer and have pros, so it's really impressive they got that many points.
You got that right. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. We'll be back here with more guests, more food, more fun. Until then, have a good day, NWA. Go Hogs.